We're gonna make it official right now, in front of the world. Next year, 2026, WrestleMania 42, live from the Superdome.
WrestleMania 42 is no longer set to take place in New Orleans. A statement from the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation indicated that the event was being rescheduled to an unspecified year in the future. Then we would find out that Money in the Bank 2026 would actually be taking place in New Orleans. Then PW Insider reported that some inside WWE believe WrestleMania 42 would emanate from an international location. Then Andrew Baydala reported that WWE had received a significant bid from an unspecified location to host WrestleMania 42 next year. And for as much as I wanted to believe that King Charles had finally committed to a WrestleMania in London, many assumed we're getting a Saudi Arabian WrestleMania. Of course, Saudi Arabia will be hosting the Royal Rumble next year too, so while the chances were slim, it wasn't entirely impossible. And then after hours of speculation and confusion, an industry official, and according to NOLA News, it would once again be emanating from Las Vegas. Death to professional wrestling, death to the WWE. I mean, Las Vegas once, okay, cool, but it wasn't exactly the best crowd in the world. It's the same with Saudi Arabia. Sometimes you guys really get it, and other times you ruin the vibe. But all reports point toward it being held at Allegiant Stadium once again. WrestleMania 42 has now been removed from WWE's official list of advertised events, with the official new location announcement pending. But going forward, PW Insider continued that WWE is expected to hold a lot more major events in Las Vegas. Part of what makes WrestleMania such a different spectacle every year is when you bring that city's culture into it. I liked when it was originally in NOLA with the Mardi Gras celebration vibe. I like when it was in Miami with that beautiful WrestleMania 28 stage and the palm trees. I liked the couple times it was in Dallas and it embodied everything being bigger in Texas. The Mania 33 stage very well may be the greatest of all time. I loved when WrestleMania was in London and the stage had a huge London eye on it where superstars dove off the carts of the London Eye. Oh wait, while I'm obviously going to push for a England WrestleMania, I think I'd also love to see new locations in general. And even if it was in Europe, while I know a lot of people will say, well, time difference, it hasn't been a problem with other sports having held international events, and it hasn't been a problem for any international B-level WWE pay-per-views. In fact, I know plenty of Americans, for example, who have really enjoyed the 3 p.m. East Coast start time. Over the last 15 years, we've had one too many repeat locations for Mania.
You sounded great. I mean, here it is. The Rock singing along with the largest collection of STD having trailer park trash The Rock has ever seen.
I'd love to see a Mania in the Gillette Stadium in Massachusetts because look at this beauty. I worry that this, along with a string of other things that have happened recently, is a knock-on effect of the TKO deal, where everything seems to be focused on profits rather than quality. And that's not saying that there isn't still quality. I've spoken about how I still think there's a ton of great wrestling storylines every week, but at the same time, eventually I have to call out what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing is a company along with UFC being more driven by money than product, in which both of those companies before TKO were far more driven by the product they were producing than the money it was making. Both companies are far more driven by views and records than actually giving people something to keep coming back to. In a similar manner, John Cena is reportedly set to team with Travis Scott and Logan Paul at Money in the Bank against Cody Rhodes and the Usos, to which I think we all said not even Universe Mode could cook that up. Although given that Travis is more than likely about to be in 2K, I'd say I may be wrong. But man, it is depressing that one of John Cena's final matches is going to be used on this. And I'm not even so much a Logan Paul hater. Sure, I don't agree with everything he does all the time, but in terms of in-ring, I still find him very entertaining and I still think he's very good, controversial opinions aside. But wow, does this just scream out as part of the problem in terms of TKO trying to bring more money into the product. And absolutely, at the end of the day, it's a business, I get that. But the entire treatment of this John Cena heel turn has just been weird and misplaced in many areas, and this is just further adding to that problem for me and many others. If John Cena wasn't retiring this year and had a ton of matches left, I'd say what the hell, sure. But on his retirement tour, maybe not so much. I really wish John was here right now so I could let him know that he is succeeding in killing professional wrestling. He's doing it. but unfortunately he's not here. On a separate note, the Wyatt Six are expected to be back on TV, quote, soon. I wasn't wild about the way their first run was going, but hey, prove me wrong. I'm always gonna root on the success of all those guys, even if I'm not a fan of everything they do all the time. Anyway, let's jump into some what ifs. And be sure to leave your wrestling what ifs down in the comments below for a chance to be in the next episode. What if Sting joined in during the 2001 Invasion storyline? I really wish he did join in during the 2001 Invasion storyline. I think it would have really added to that entire saga. Because obviously when you look at the Invasion, you can certainly say that it failed, but do I think it would have failed if Sting was part of the Invasion? I don't think so. And equally, I think about a guy like Sting and what he could have accomplished in WWE during the 2000s and how much he could have added to that roster if instead of being in TNA for many years, he was in WWE for many years. We could have got that Triple H match much sooner with prime Triple H in the 2000s. We could have got a John Cena match. We could have seen Sting versus Shawn Michaels, Sting versus Edge, Randy Orton, the list goes on and on. Now, of course, on the other side of that, Sting not being in TNA, I think ironically is a huge stinger to them. Because when you think about those leading names that were in TNA in the 2000s and the early 2010s, Sting is one of those guys. Like, he really established himself post WCW as a TNA guy alongside AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. But would I have loved to see him in WWE far sooner than he ended up? Absolutely. What if Santino won the Rumble? I think I can speak for everyone in saying we would have preferred it. The story writes itself. The Milan Miracle winning the biggest Royal Rumble of all time, going on to WrestleMania, that would have been awesome. And in a similar ilk, I really wish he would have won that Elimination Chamber against Daniel Bryan. There's two moments there where you could have made Santino into a made man. What if Batista never left? I don't entirely know if you're talking about 2010 or 2014, but I think you're talking about 2014 because the butterfly effect of Batista doing the Queen wave and waving goodbye set up for so many things happening that summer and in the next 10 years. But I think if he never leaves and Daniel Bryan never gets super hot, he probably just becomes WWE champion a few more times. Maybe he goes into the Hall of Fame a little bit sooner. I also think we would have got far more Batista dream matches. I love Dave Batista, trust me, I do. Big fan of him as an actor, as a person, as everything he has done in his career. And I really do wish we could have seen more of him both after he left in 2010 and in 2014, but it just wasn't the way the cookie crumbled. And ultimately, I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out because Daniel Bryan. What if Finn Balor wasn't injured and kept the Universal title? I spoke about this one in the last What If episode, so go check that out if you haven't seen it already. What if Rey Mysterio turned heel? I think most of you know what I'm about to say, don't you? 3 letters, 4 numbers. SVR 2011 Rey Mysterio Road to WrestleMania as a heel with Jack Swagger. Are you kidding me? We already... And finally, what if WWE's ECW was still the top show to this day? Honestly, I reckon if WWE ECW was still around, it would have very much been like NXT. And ultimately, I think if they never decided to do NXT or they never thought of that branding, WWE ECW would have just been what NXT became anyway. Because when you look at those prime NXT takeover crowds, that's very much like an ECW one-night stand rowdy hardcore fan crowd. And so I think WWE ECW could have been on top if it was just NXT, you know? What if Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero were still alive? Ooh, I have thought about that a lot. If Benoit was still alive and the Benoit tragedy doesn't happen, I think WWE would have became stricter on their headshot policies a bit later than they did. But I think ultimately it was always going to happen because wrestlers' deaths, even if you don't have Benoit dying, it's going to keep happening anyway, given the way they were treating their wrestlers in the 2000s. I think if Eddie Guerrero was still alive, he would have retired at WrestleMania 26 on the same night as Shawn Michaels and would have been inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. And speaking of Shawn Michaels, if Eddie never dies, then we get that match in 2006 at Mania as well. You obviously bang out a few more Eddie Guerrero dream matches and Chris Benoit as well. We may have even seen Benoit and Eddie retire both in 2010 at Mania 26 on that same night in a very similar manner to how they both celebrated winning the world titles. They both hug again, the crowd claps, two of the greatest professional wrestlers ever, and that's it. They head into the Arizona sunset. And it is heartbreaking that we never... It's the entire situation is heartbreaking. Like, obviously, it's absolutely unforgivable what Benoit did, but in terms of a pure wrestler, man, what a waste of not being able to talk about someone who was that good. What if DDJ never watched Total Divas / Bellas? Just imagine the impact that would have had on our current timeline. Imagine me never watching that show. It doesn't exist. No, we're not claiming that. No.